includes historic setting in Guyana, neonatal intensive care expanded to more health facilities, and all set for MASH 2014. You're watching Weekly Digest, a production of the Government Information Agency that keeps you updated on what the government has been doing. With the details, I'm Vinita Mishra. The Caribbean Court of Justice convened its first itinerant sitting in Guyana since the country acceded to the court's appellate jurisdiction in 2005. 3 cases were heard at the sittings, which were held at the Guyana International Conference Center, presided over by President of the CCJ, Sir Charles Dennis Byron, and Justices Ralston Nelson, Adrian Saunders, Desiree Bernard, Jacob Witt, David Hayton, and Winston Anderson. The 3-day hearing culminated with a special ceremonial sitting in honor of Guyana's very own Justice Desiree Patricia Bernard, the first and sole female judge to sit on the CCJ to date.
Justice Bernard is an embodiment of the intellectual caliber of Caribbean jurists and of the commitment of Guyana to the CCJ. She joins the ranks of other noted children of the Republic of Guyana who have made invaluable contributions to the CCJ.
Justice Bernard was appointed the first female judge to the High Court of the Supreme Court of Guyana and later became the first female judge of the Court of Appeal in 1992. 4 years later, she was appointed the first female justice in the Caribbean.
At every stage of the hierarchical structure of the judiciary at which Her Honor presided, I don't think anyone can doubt that her contribution, her written judgments, are an exhibition of legal scholarship as well as an appreciable exhibition of pragmatism, so often absent but so much needed in our jurisprudence.
Justice Bernard expressed her gratitude for what she described as a most memorable send-off. She also spoke of her experiences during her tenure.
We take seriously the heavy responsibility of being the court of last resort for the countries accepting our jurisdiction, and spare no effort in ensuring that the judgments of the court can withstand international scrutiny. Over the nearly 9 years of the court's existence, I posit the view, in which I am sure my fellow brothers concur, that we have earned the respect of other international courts and the majority of the people of the Caribbean region as we strive to fulfill the vision of the court, which is, and I quote, to provide for the Caribbean community an accessible, fair, efficient, innovative, and impartial justice system, built on a jurisprudence reflective of our history, values, and traditions, while maintaining an inspirational, independent institution worthy of emulation by the courts of the region and the trust and confidence of its people.
Guyana's Attorney General also handed over copies of the revised laws of Guyana, as well as the country's law reports, to the President of the CCJ. Departmental heads, along with other stakeholders in the local agriculture sector, recently met to offer input on the implementation of a European Union-funded project aimed towards creating and strengthening the regional and national sanitary and phytosanitary measures.
The local consultation was aimed at determining Guyana's priority agricultural health and food safety and fishery needs for the development of a country action plan for addressing these under the Sanitary and Phytosanitary Measures Project. The project is directed towards facilitating CARIFORUM states improved access to international markets by helping them to better develop their own regionally harmonized sanitary and phytosanitary measures.
Guyana welcomes this project as it seeks to strengthen our legislation and provides necessary and important capacity improvement to our present plant and animal health systems that will lead us to meet international standards. It also will provide the kind of linkages and networks between CARICOM member states and other external training partners that will help us to understand and communicate easily with each other.
The fact that so many stakeholders are present today demonstrates a commitment to actively participate in today's consultation. I am confident that our partners in development and you, the beneficiaries, will take advantage of this opportunity and use this forum to improve coordination, prioritize our needs in an effort to ensure better use of limited resources, with the shared goal of increasing impact in member states.
The project, which comprises 3 components, legislation, national and regional coordination, and capacity building for meeting the sanitary and phytosanitary requirement for international trade, is being implemented by the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agricultural Collaboration with the CARICOM Secretariat, Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism, and the Sanitary and Phytosanitary Measures Committee of the Dominican Republic.
The long-awaited family court is closer to becoming operational. This institution, which is the first of its kind in the country, will provide an environment where family law can be dealt with in a specialized manner.
My report is that the furniture is currently being put into the building, and hopefully, it has been a long time, sir. Let me concede, though I have no responsibility for the acquisition of the furniture. It's a matter for the judiciary. But they are in the process, I know, because I have visited the premises recently, and they are in the process of installing the furniture. They are custom-made furniture. You have unique things there that you will not see in a court in Guyana. But they are getting there, and it has been a long time. I agree.
The date for the commissioning will be finalized by the Judicial Administration. An important prerequisite for the operationalizing of the court was the drafting of the family court rules. This have since been completed and handed over to the Clerk of the National Assembly to comply with the formal requirements of gazetting. Early last year, training was conducted for judges and the Supreme Court registry staff on the use of the family court rules by a judge who was responsible for the drafting of the said rules. The new facility will handle issues such as divorce, division of property, domestic matters, adoption, guardianship, and custody. There's more to come. Please stay tuned.
Guyana is set to achieve the goal set by the United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF of universal birth registration by 2015. The General Register Office has launched an intensive campaign. It has decentralized its services to specifically cater to the needs of residents living in the interior location. Bedside registration is also done in several public hospitals. There are now 200 registration centers operating in the 10 regions. Citizens are urged to ensure that all births are registered. In an effort to respond more promptly to citizens, the Home Affairs Ministry has launched an online crime reporting system which allows citizens who possess or have access to cell phones, computers, or other devices with internet connections to report criminal activities. Citizens can get instant access to security personnel on BlackBerry Messenger via 280-4E429. Reports of corruption can also be made on www.ipaidthebribe.com. These reports can be made anonymously.
Guyana as a tourist destination continues to receive international acclaim. The reputable National Geographic Traveler has named Destination Guyana as one of the must-see places in 2014. The renowned magazine said Guyana is the best-kept secret in South America with stunning natural wonders. This year, increased focus will be placed on enhancing the standards within the industry, focusing on tourism products and services, multi-destination itinerary planning, events management, ecotourism, and sustainable principles and guidelines, as well as a grading scheme which will be developed for the industry.
In an effort to better their lives, more than 42,000 pensioners are currently enjoying a 25% increase in their pension. This is in addition to the waiver of the Guyana Water Incorporated's bill. And in another attempt to enhance their lives, over 8,500 pensioners are benefiting from $20,000 subsidy yearly towards their electricity bills with the Guyana Power and Light Incorporated.
The government's invitation to the parliamentary opposition and other stakeholders for consultations on the 2014 national budget remains open.
The parliamentary opposition is still to respond positively to an open invitation given by Finance Minister Dr. Ashni Singh for joint consultations on the National Budget 2014.
I don't know whether they will shift their position, but as of now, there is an open invitation from the government to the opposition to meet with them on Budget 2014. And as of now, they have not accepted that invitation. Indeed, they've gone further and said they have no intentions of meeting with us. That's essentially the current position.
Asked about the recent meeting between opposition parliamentarians and the hierarchy of the Guyana Defence Force and the signals of support for the military, the minister had this response.
Protection of Guyana's territorial integrity is concerned and ensuring compliance with our laws and so on. We are happy to have everybody on board and we're happy that everybody is supportive. But I will say this, that you simply have to look at not the platitudes that they offer and the words that they utter. This opposition has proven time and time again that they are not faithful to their word and they cannot be trusted. And if you look, for example, the last time when the last supplementary financial paper came to Parliament, they subjected the same GDF that they are now professing to be committed to supporting our request for budgetary allocations. It was the opposition, in fact, it was APNU members of Parliament who led an unprecedented assault against the request for supplementary funds for the GDF and interrogated the request for funding in an nth degree of detail. And in fact, at the time, I believe I saw one or two news articles that drew attention to the fact that the Army was being interrogated. The request for supplementary funding for the Army was interrogated by the opposition in a manner that was completely unprecedented. I don't know if and that was highlighted in the media, so I don't know if their current meeting with the Army, most recent meeting with the Army, was intended to be some sort of an effort at damage control.
The finance minister noted that the national budget will be presented as is constitutionally mandated, and he is optimistic that the opposition is supportive of every ministry's allocation.
With the implementation of neonatal intensive care services in local health facilities, through a partnership between the Health Ministry and Guyana Help the Kids, hundreds of mothers now have safer deliveries.
This partnership was developed approximately 1 year ago to hopefully end child mortality.
In the beginning, we wanted to make sure we achieved two things. We wanted to make sure that the program was comprehensive. By that I mean every single baby born in Guyana had to have access to the best possible care. So it had to be comprehensive. But it also had to be sustainable, so that 1 and 5 and 10 and 15 years from now, that program should stand on its own 2 feet.
It targets the 5 main hospitals, which are the GPHC, New Amsterdam, Linden, West Demerara, and Study hospitals, as these institutions account for 85% of the country's newborn babies. The neonatal units at the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation, New Amsterdam, and Linden hospitals are well equipped and fully functioning. They have managed to greatly reduce the number of under 5 mortality in Guyana. Records show a 50% reduction in the number of deaths recorded at the GPHC within the period of a year of implementation of the neonatal project.
In March of 2012, we opened up the first state-of-the-art level 3 neonatal intensive care unit at the Georgetown Hospital. By level 3, I mean that we were now able to provide the highest level of care which is comparable to anywhere else in North America. We were able to put babies on CPAP machines and ventilators and provide the best possible care. And this was really as a result of the collaborative effort between ourselves and the CEO and the Minister of Health.
The West Demerara Regional and Study hospitals will have their neonatal units opened later this year.
Residents of Linden were sensitized on the Anti-Money Laundering and Countering the Financing of Terrorism Amendment Bill and the need for Guyana to pass the amendments in keeping with international financial requirements.
Minister within the Ministry of Finance, Juan Edghill, and Presidential Advisor on Governance, Gail Teixeira, were well received by a large gathering at the Watuka Guest House in Linden, where the first town hall meeting on the Anti-Money Laundering and Countering of Financing of Terrorism Bill was held. Residents who attended the meeting lauded government's efforts for reaching out to Lindeners with the aim of sensitizing them on the bill.
The education provided was very good, but we must understand that the education provided only came about because of maybe this time this bill took to be passed. So at least there was one positive in this, and we must be grateful for that.
In a detailed presentation, Mr. Teixeira reiterated the need for the urgent passage of the bill, whilst outlining the implications for the ordinary man as well as for businesses and Guyana's economy at large.
As a citizen of this country, to talk to your MPs, to talk to your party leaders, to talk to people who can influence APNU, AFC, to allow this bill, this one, 22, that was agreed by both sides of the committee, to bring it back to the House on time on February 27th. That's what we need.
The clauses in this bill is to address the very same issue. One of the issues to be addressed is something called beneficial ownership. Because a man who's laundering money, not going to buy the property and put it in his name. So while you are concerned about a man who don't know, you don't know where he get the money from, he might be a front to somebody whose money is being laundered in his name. That is why we have this bill.
With the passage of this bill, Mr. Scheer explained that the law would allow the Finance Intelligence Unit to follow the money trail of money launderers. Globally, she said, it is by the same methods as outlined in the bill that several drug lords have been captured and prosecuted. However, the Anti-Money Laundering and Countering of Financing of Terrorism Amendment Bill has been in limbo since April of last year, with little or no support from the political opposition. The bill, once passed and assented to, will be in keeping with requirements from several international financial bodies.
After a week of competitions in various categories, the Ministry of Education pulled off the biggest ever Children's Mashramani Parade.
The Children's Mashramani Parade displayed a diversity of colors that illustrate various aspects of Guyana's culture on the streets of Georgetown.
Oh, yes.
The road march started from Parade Ground and ended in the National Park, Thomas Lands, where the panel of judges as well as onlookers was completely blown away by the colorful spectacle.
I think it's fantastic. You see behind us the great talent and creativity our children have. And more than what is on the parade, what is extremely inspiring for me is that along the route of the parade, we have so many people lining the route that children are getting to see what they are capable of. So I think we'll have more people on the parade next year. This is one of the biggest turnouts we've ever had, both on the sides as well as on the parade. And it's a great time for me, so happy Mashramani.
I think it's a great event. Lots of colors, lots of schools, and this is perhaps one of the biggest children's parade. A very nice costume, and as you can see, quite a lot of variety, depicting good messages. So I want to congratulate the Ministry of Education for doing such a wonderful job.
During the period February 12 to 14, students from all 10 administrative regions and the Georgetown Education District took part in competitions, vying for trophies in dramatic poetry and calypso, masquerade, dance, and choir presentation and steel band.
There's more to come. Please stay tuned.
Ghana is set to achieve the goal set by the United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF of universal birth registration by 2015. The General Register Office has launched an intensive campaign. It has decentralized its services to specifically cater to the needs of residents living in the interior location. Bedside registration is also done in several public hospitals. There are now 200 registration centers operating in the 10 regions. Citizens are urged to ensure that all births are registered. In an effort to respond more promptly to citizens, the Home Affairs Ministry has launched an online crime reporting system which allows citizens who possess or have access to cell phones, computers or other devices with internet connections to report criminal activities. Citizens can get instant access to security personnel on BlackBerry Messenger via 280-4E429. Reports of corruption can also be made on www.ipaidthebribe.com. These reports can be made anonymously.
Guyana as a tourist destination continues to receive international acclaim. The reputable National Geographic Traveler has named Destination Guyana as one of the must-see places in 2014. The renowned magazine said Guyana is the best-kept secret in South America with stunning natural wonders. This year, increased focus will be placed on enhancing the standards within the industry, focusing on tourism products and services, multi-destination itinerary planning, events management, ecotourism, and sustainable principles and guidelines, as well as a grading scheme which will be developed for the industry.
In an effort to better their lives, more than 42,000 pensioners are currently enjoying a 25% increase in their pension. This is in addition to the waiver of the Guyana Water Incorporated's bill. And in another attempt to enhance their lives, over 8,500 pensioners are benefiting from $20,000 subsidy yearly towards their electricity bills with the Guyana Power and Light Incorporated.
The Caribbean Development Bank has lauded Guyana for being a model for development in the region.
President of the Caribbean Development Bank, Dr. William Warren Smith, projects that Guyana, along with Suriname and Haiti, will take the lead amongst the regional economies in terms of accelerating growth in the next 2 years. The bank has projected that the Caribbean region in 2014 will experience an overall growth of 3.7%, with much of Guyana's growth being driven by its mining sector.
Guyana has a very, very vibrant mining sector, as you would be aware. And even though gold prices might be somewhat down at this particular point in time, there's still a lot of investment that's taking place in the mining sector generally and in gold in particular. But generally, there's a lot of vibrancy in the Guyanese economy. Just by casual observation, one can see there's a lot of construction that's taking place in the country. I like to say that whenever I go to Guyana, you can almost see the country changing in front of your eyes. So that's just a casual indication of the extent to which economic activity is vibrant and buoyant in that country.
Dr. Smith lauded Guyana for being a model of development and said that there were some good lessons to be learned from this country.
We approved a fairly sizable loan to Guyana last year for river and sea defenses. And that's an area where you're going to need continuous investment going forward because of your peculiar circumstances, your geographical location, and the fact that a substantial part of the country is below sea level, and also climate change, the rising sea levels and so on. So if you don't build the resilience against that type of threat, then it's going to undermine your development. So that's an area where CDB is more and more becoming active, and an area in which we want to continue to engage with Guyana in the future.
CDB funding has been used for financing social and economic infrastructure such as schools, road and water projects, building more disaster-resistant structures, community skills training, and support for small and medium-sized enterprises.
Up next is Dr. Prem Mizir with Perspectives.
Aristotle once said that politics is the result of humans being the only herd animals talented enough to talk to each other. Through talking and reasoning, Aristotle believed that politicians as humans could decide what is good and evil, or just and unjust, not for themselves as politicians, but for the entire society. Well, Aristotle probably had a different understanding of politics as we know it today in Guyana, because either the politicians from different sides of the political aisle do not talk to each other here, or if they do, sometimes it is not sincere, and there are others who with sincerity talk to each other but without achieving anything. Indeed, we have the odd times when politicians may talk to each other and do get some things done. However, very frequently, politicians do not reach agreement on matters of national interest, resulting in a downward slide for Guyana. The question at issue then is what it would take to reach agreement on matters of public interest so as to decide what is good or evil for Guyana. concluding agreements in the National Assembly most times becomes a predictable no against the government as the executive. Why? The 10th Parliament arrived with a one-seat majority opposition, APNU and AFC. These are the two opposition bodies which came to the opening of Parliament armed with ambitious perceptions and wild expectations of controlling the ruling PPPC agenda and program of activities. Any opposition's control of any executive's agenda implies that that opposition is the de facto executive. It is not surprising then that the one-seat combined opposition majority in Guyana would want to follow this trail. Being outside of the executive, the combined opposition, for all intents and purposes, expects to wield actual executive powers by virtue of its one-seat majority vis-a-vis its illegal actions in the budgetary process over the last 2 years in the National Assembly. In the course of lawlessness in the National Assembly, matters of national importance get lost in parliamentary talking points and translation. For instance, recently, in the course of government's efforts to update and present the anti-money laundering bill to the Paris plenary of the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, at the 11th hour, APNU tabled amendments. That is, at the last minute, APNU tabled amendments. APNU's action delayed parliamentary progress and agreement on this anti-money laundering bill. Even though the task force at that Paris plenary did not recommend any action against Guyana at this time, it certainly would have inserted a red flag on Guyana. This parliamentary action of presenting amendments at the final moment, when so much of the national interest is at stake, may be irresponsible behavior on the part of APNU and AFC. But some may argue that the doctrine of separation of powers allows APNU to execute its legislative functions efficiently and at any time that it wants to, and also separately from the other branches of government. And apparently, APNU feels it was the appropriate time to present such amendments and that it acted within the realm of legitimacy. But Justice Brandeis countered that the intent of the separation of powers was, and I quote, not to promote efficiency, but to preclude the exercise of arbitrary power, end of quote. There are some who would say that APNU acted arbitrarily by taking advantage of its one-seat majority solely in its self-interest and not in the national interest. In the Aristotelian vein, many politicians in the parliamentary chamber in Guyana fail to realize that their responsibility, first and foremost, is to promote the happiness of the citizens of Guyana, especially the poor and vulnerable. I thank you very much.
And that's all we have for you in this week's program, but before we go, here's a recap of the highlights. CCJ concludes historic setting in Guyana. Neonatal intensive care expanded to more health facilities and all set for MASH 2014. Remember that Weekly Digest and other government information can be found on our website www.gina.gov.gy, or you can send us your comments and suggestions at ginagovgy@gmail.com. Thank you for watching, and do join us again next week for another program. Goodbye for now.